And we have these slogans that are you share, they share, repeat, or you plus two. But to have you plus two, there needs to be one, right? So I'm going to speak about how powerful it is for you to reach out to one person and how it can be life-altering for you. And then I want to tell you a little bit about who the most important person is that you should really be connecting with. So first off, when we talk about the authentic connection, go back, okay. There we go, okay. True connection holds no expectations, no ulterior motives, and purely desires a genuine exchange to give, elevate, listen, edify, and love. And I think a lot of times when we're here in network marketing, we feel like, okay, I've got to learn the scripts. What do you say to that person? And if we're being fully honest, it's not totally an unselfish thing when we go out to speak to people, because there just kind of happens to be in the back of our mind, like, oh, I wonder if they can join our team, right? And we're sort of losing this ability to truly connect with people. So one of my big pieces of advice is to just connect with somebody outside of the realm of your laptop, and make sure that you're somebody who's really reaching out to people authentically. And then you will surely see your business growing, because people will know that you really are who you say you are, because you will be building credibility and true influence by just showing love to people. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. This is my family, and I started with Isagenix in 2013. I am the proud mom of 7 children, as Lisa said, and I have 2 by birth, and we have 5 via international adoption. I had some success because my backstory is that I actually worked as a singer, as a Disney princess. I was the voice of Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty, and I sang. I'm not going to sing right now. Don't make me sing. Stop it. You should see what she's doing in the back. She's just, we'll see how I feel later. So I was working at Disney years ago, and then something had happened. I won't get into that right now, but it was something that really took me away from there. But I worked as a successful singer with a band leader in New York. But then as I was there in New York, I just started feeling that there was more that I wanted to contribute. I loved having these big weddings. I played some, like Michael Douglas's wedding to Catherine Zeta-Jones. Jimmy Buffett was one of my clients. They're like $1 million parties. But it was during that time when I just felt this pull to truly connect, because I felt this disconnect. It was kind of impersonal, and we had 2 children, and it was so amazing, and then I wanted to adopt. And so I had heard about Guatemala, and I adopted a baby in Guatemala, and her mom had been 14 years old, and she was in an area in Guatemala where a lot of women are, raped or killed, and so this little girl's story was so amazing. So we had adopted her, and I went back to singing on those stages where, huge parties where they would kind of throw away like $80,000 worth of flowers from 1 hour of a ceremony, and they'd argue about different shades of white tablecloths, and I was starting to be like, I just saw these children in Guatemala. Like, I was having a really bad attitude about my job after a while. And then we went on to adopt 3 children from Ethiopia. They were 5, 6, and 9 at the time in 2007. And their parents had died from AIDS. One of my children actually watched their mother pass away, and we brought them home. And I still went back up on the stages and started to perform, but I was feeling like I wanted to connect more with them. So during that time, I became an advocate of adoption, and online on Facebook, as Facebook was growing, we created these networks and everything, but I desired to just work full-time in adoption, doing some kind of advocacy work. But I didn't know how, because my experience was as a singing Disney princess and a band leader in New York. It's like, how do you do that? So then the economy hit in 2008. If some of you know who Bernie Madoff was. Anybody know who Bernie Madoff was? Yeah, well, he was one of my clients, and like in New York City, everybody lost money, so the economy really hit and was really bad. And we got to this point between 2008 and 2011 where we were working and living off of our savings. And then we were really struggling, and it was simultaneously at that time that we were called to adopt. And when I say called, it's one of those things where, you know, I'm a woman of faith, and I really felt like God was calling us to adopt this child. But we had no money, and we were starting to struggle. And, you know, we had foreclosure notices, we had all of this stuff happening. And then I found out about this little guy. Okay. What happened? I didn't touch it. Okay. So his name was Alec, and I saw him online, and it just happened to come across this website with this little boy who had been in an orphanage for 5 years. I took that picture. The picture was a little bit more gritty, the one that I saw. And he was labeled invalid. He had been in an orphanage from the time that he was 2 days old. And what happens is when you're about 5 years old in a Ukrainian orphanage, you are about to be transferred from a baby orphanage into a place called an internat. And it's in those places that they're like adult mental institutions. And the children often die in there. But I just felt a calling to adopt him. I didn't know how, and we didn't have the money. But there was a thought in my mind that really said, look, you know, I would rather live my life and have us struggle, even though we're like near foreclosure, we don't have the money to adopt. But I would rather live my life the worst way in America than understand that he may have died. It was just this thought where we will rough it out if we needed to. And I didn't really want to go, but sign after sign after sign had us go to him. And the people we had built this network with started to contribute money so that we made it available. We got grants, and we got grants mainly because our income was low. So we were able to go and adopt him. And when we got there, the judge said, I'm really happy that you came because we've seen children as healthy as him be dead within 6 months of us transferring him. So you may be wondering right now, what does this have anything to do with Isagenix? You know, we had the heart to go and extend ourselves to one child in our life. This one, and you know, we had adopted other children, but in the worst part of our lives, we decided to adopt him. And so what we did is that we brought him home, and things actually got worse. We got to the point where we were getting our food supplemented by food that had been rejected from the grocery stores. It was expired, brought to the food pantry, and whatever the food pantry didn't want, we could pick from. So we started to supplement our food that way. And it was during this time that I started to feel really low. I was just like, why did we even adopt them? It was a real struggle. When you talk about staying in the game, for me, my story was staying in the game for my family. Like, you know, if you're gonna adopt children who have watched their parents die and lost everything, when you've seen children who, you know, maybe like they could have lived in a place where their parents had been raped or killed, and a child who's labeled invalid, who had no future, like all you want is for them to understand success principles. You want them to thrive. You want them to crush their goals. You want them to have that. And there I was trying to figure out a way to make it into something that was new, something where I could advocate, but I didn't know how. And it was during this time that I was feeding them expired birthday cake for breakfast that I oddly became an expert on nutrition. And what's so ironic is that Peter Greenlaw was talking about a man named Marco Ruggiero. I went online to really research. This was like before I found out about Isagenix, like 2 or 3 years before that. I started to research gut health, immune issues in orphans, all of this stuff, and it all pointed to this guy, Dr. Ruggiero, and everything that he had talked about. And I didn't know if what he was talking about existed, but one day I was so desperate that I was in a parking lot trying to buy a pair of sneakers for my son, Jared, who is now an amazing track athlete. But I remember calling out to God and saying, please scour the universe for an opportunity for us, because I can't buy these sneakers. And I will stay here in the desert, struggling, but that's not who you are. God, you've brought people out of the desert into the mountaintop, and you've brought people out of the valley, into the promised land. And if not for me, for these children who lost everything. And so, it's just ironic, not ironic, I say that a lot, not ironic, not coincidental. It's really, I believe, fate and the hand of God and the grace of God in my life, that a couple days later, somebody happened to introduce me to a protein shake. And I grilled them because I was an expert. Again, even though my kids were eating Spire birthday cake for breakfast, and I gained 50 pounds thinking I just want this for my children, So the shake lined up to everything I researched with this guy, Dr. Ruggiero, who I'd never even known had any kind of connection with Isagenix. But I still didn't really have the faith, but there was something inside of me that said, go for it. So I borrowed money to get a value pack. I borrowed the money, and I just said, can I return it? And then before you knew it, I realized that, oh my gosh. I started to feel better when you say like the switch went off. I just felt this sense of hope. It's wellness, but I felt a sense of hope within 3 days. I was like, I think I can do this. Where a few days before, it was like all this doubt. The products themselves gave me the ability to build this business because my attitude changed. Just so interesting. So I shared this with my friend who had 15 children from Joliet, 8 that were adopted, and then all of a sudden I realized, wow, this could be the thing we're waiting for. So I started a group called Adoptogenics. I gave it a little name, and I realized, I said, oh my goodness, it's like, I just couldn't believe it, because we've been adopting for years, and nobody, in all of the adoption conferences we went to, nobody had ever talked about nutrition and the adopted child. I mean, come on, that's it should be a given. Nobody had discussed this. And then the other thing was the parents that were so stressed out needed the nutrition. And then from there, we had no post-adoption financial support, I call it that. Because we all would get money to help people adopt, but then they would come home and they would be like me, struggling to try to make it, and it wasn't always the greatest for the kids. So all of a sudden I cast this vision, and we were so blessed because I was able to earn, and this little financial disclaimer, obviously this doesn't happen for everybody, but I was able to earn $100,000 in 6 months, and then I became a millionaire within 3 years in this company. But I tell you a story about Alec because I believe with all of my heart that I would not be here in this position had I not been a mom so desperate to have her child, number one, come home. And we extended ourselves with nothing, knocked on the door of this orphanage where a child could say, I hate you, I don't want to go home, I'm not coming with you. We risked everything for one. And I hear a lot of people say too embarrassed and too scared. And we really need to, we're talking about connecting, right? I'm getting back to the theme. We need to understand that the one plus one, But the one is so crucial. The one person that you may be thinking about that's your neighbor, somebody in your family. The one person who needs this. And I tell people all along, I was living in quiet desperation. I could dress up, go to church, when I didn't even know how I was going to feed our kids after school. And it was my friend who reached out to one person, me, and risked, everything. Not everything, but she risked her, maybe being embarrassed or whatever, and introduced this to me. And now I have thousands of people in my team that have adopted from all over the world, and it's different. This company is different for me than it may be for you, but it can be anything you want it to be. And that was the key. I didn't want to just be a network marketer. I wanted to be able to be the best part of myself that I could be. I wanted to be the best version of myself that I could be, and have this industry be a support for that. And that's what it has been. And so connecting is about reaching out to the one, to others. Just think, one person at a time. Do that, as often as you can, but have one conversation, another conversation, and keep risking yourself. Like I tell people that my team did so well because these were parents that were raising children that would they would say, I hate you, and they're going to run away from them, and it was rough raising children with special needs, and especially with what they call adverse childhood experiences. So for them, knocking on somebody's door and then saying, sorry, I don't want your shakes, they're not going to go, oh my gosh, I'm never talking to anybody else. Like, they had courage. Like, they were thinking, so what if you don't want my shake? I'm going on to the next person. You know what I'm saying?
Hey!
Keep it in perspective. Get out of your own head. Be willing to take risks, and remember who we are. And that's my next point. There's an aspect of grit and strength and deep compassion, how many of you are from Illinois? Is it like the whole room? Okay, Wisconsin or Iowa as well, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you something. I left this area when I was just a teenager to move to New York. But there's an aspect of who we are, even from this region, that is so strong and so powerful. And you need to understand your pedigree and where you're from. My parents and grandparents, they were farmers. And some of my relatives still are. And they worked so hard. And what we have inside of us is powerful, and don't ever underestimate what one of you can do. And look at all of us, just from off of the top of my head, do you understand that this group of people right here probably represents about, I'm guessing, well over 100 to maybe 200,000 people within the company based on our team, at least, yeah. And so understand that. How, really try to stand in your confidence. And the one thing I tell people is that remember who you are. And I had to do this little game with myself because I had lost all confidence, because when you're sitting there eating expired food and all that, you're like, oh, I'm never getting out of this pit. It felt like I was in the bottom of a dumpster. And one day I said to myself, I was like, wait a second, I'm the person who, when I was younger, I was a softball pitcher that could strike people out, and we went to states. I would talk to myself like that. I was that girl who left Illinois and went to New York City, and I got the job at Disney recording. I was that girl who had that big band in New York City. It was $1 million band. I did that before. Instead of, oh my gosh, I've lost everything, I'm never going to get out. Remember, if you make a great lasagna, that is something that's amazing. Think about it. There's excellence in who you are.